I'm going to introduce myself, Alastair Mitchell. I'm the CEO and founder of Huddle. And what I'm going to talk about today is traditionally one of those boring subjects that you could talk about at an internet conference. But what I'm going to talk about today is enterprise software. And I'm going to talk about why I think actually it's the most exciting part of software today, and why at Huddle we're trying to kill it, and hopefully inspire some people here to start other businesses that are helping Huddle and others like Jive and Yammer and people like that to kill enterprise software completely. So I'm going to spend 15 minutes talking about Huddle and then maybe do some questions at the end of it, and hopefully you like what you see. So, enterprise software. Why is it dying? And what does it mean for people building businesses, people who work in businesses, and what are we trying to do about it at Huddle? Well, it's dying for one very big reason, and that's these guys. That's all of us here. What we call the F generation, i.e. the Facebook generation. And they are, right now, entering the world of work. Right now, people who have grown up with these technologies as their birthright are now joining the enterprise and working in businesses. And what's changing about the way they work is because the way they think, the way they work, the technologies that we use in our social lives are completely different to the technologies that you've traditionally had to use in the enterprise. You've been used to using Facebook. You've been used to using social tools, Twitter, whatever you want. But what you get when you join a big company is you get tools like this. Awful, terrible, the worst user experience, the worst information, the worst apps, very old. This is a classic example. This is Sharepoint, which is a product from Microsoft that we really hate. But it's so different from this. It's so different from Facebook. It's untrue. And you get into work and you think, what the hell is this? Right? I'm used to using tools outside of work. Why is it that when I get into work, my life is so terrible? And that's what we're trying to do at Huddle. And we're using the internet to do it. So you arrive at work, you get given these tools, you get given your BlackBerry, so you have to carry 2 phones around with you now. You're given a phone number to a help desk that you have to call if you want to get a new computer. The computer itself is 3 years old, and it's the size of a brick. You get given an email login, which doesn't connect to any of your other emails. And you're told that you can't use any of your iPad at work, you can't bring your Mac into work. And that's what it's like working in a business today. So it's unsurprising that there's a revolution going on. And lots of people here in this business and at Huddle, we are trying to lead that revolution and change the way you work in business. But what happens when this revolution happens is there's a big conflict. And that conflict is between us as the user, as the people working in a business, and the IT guys, who traditionally their job has been to control us, control the information that's going on. And we, as users, want to set information free. And that's what this is happening. It's a lovely picture of Jay Leno on the right. I never even knew he was an actor. But guess who's winning? We're winning. And we're winning primarily because of one device, and that's the phone. Every day we are bringing our phones into work, and on those phones we have millions and millions of apps. And, sorry if you couldn't hear me. We're having millions and millions of apps, and we are using those in our social lives and in our work lives. And that is changing everything about the way we do work. So we're winning. We're being able to bring our social lives into work on our phones. But when we get there, you don't just work on your phone, you work on your laptop, you work on the servers, you work on email, you work on enterprise tools like SAP and Sharepoint and all this stuff. And what does that mean? Well, it means that work is still shit. Work still sucks. It's awful working in a big business. It's so different from your experience outside of work, it's untrue. So we decided to invent Huddle to change all that. We decided to invent a new type of enterprise software that uses the web to help people to work better together. And we decided to focus on collaboration, which is basically all that work is. Collaboration is a term that's used a lot in software. It's much overused. But what does it actually mean? It means that the process of me working with someone else in a team or on a project around some content, sharing a document, and then discussing it and getting something done. That's all that collaboration is, and it's the process of work. So we decided to build a product called Huddle to change that and make it very, very easy to do. What is Huddle? Huddle is a cloud collaboration provider, but it's also a file sharing, project management, discussion, social tool. We're in a huddle now, right? We're a very big huddle, 600 people in a huddle. But a huddle is basically a group of people online working together to share some documents, have a discussion, manage a project, and get work done. Now, in today's web world, what does that mean? Well, it means it's obviously available on the web. It has to be available on every single phone. It has to be available syncing content from your desktop up into the cloud. It has to be available within Word and Excel and Outlook. Everywhere you go, you have to be able to access Huddle. And the first rule of collaboration is that you have to be able to work with whoever you want to work with. You have to be able to work with your team, people sitting next to you, the people who are in the office across the road, people who are your customers, your partners, suppliers, everyone outside of your world. And that's what Huddle helps you to do. So that's what we built. We built a cloud collaboration product for the enterprise. And it's going pretty well. 4 years old. We're tripling in size every year. We've got something like 100,000 companies who are using Huddle across 180 countries, 12 different languages, and spanning governments like the UK government, NASA, the US government, you name it. All of these people using Huddle as a way to work together better. And the biggest reason why they're using Huddle is because the traditional way in which we worked is completely dead. The traditional world, right, was, okay, I have a server, okay, I have some software, I put my software on the server. And when you come into work, you use that software on the server to work with the people in the business behind the firewall. But that's bullshit. No one works like that anymore. All of your work is outside. It's with people outside your business. It's with people, your customers, your partners, your suppliers. The guy you've been working with in the UK or in India or on Twitter for years to do some web development, those are the people you work with, and they're not on your firewall. They don't have a corporate email address. They don't have to use the corporate BlackBerry. So you can invite them into Huddle and work with them as easily as you can in any other social network or social tool. But believe it or not, just that very fact of being able to work outside the enterprise, outside the firewall, in a traditional enterprise is incredibly old-fashioned. So that's how we work. It's about sharing content, managing projects, discussing, working with people, seeing who you're working with. And I'm a member of 80 huddles, 80 people that I can access on my phone, 80 groups of people that I can access on the internet here that I traditionally would never have been able to work with because most of them are outside my business. So it's all about secure cross-organizational collaboration. And that's a huge part of what everyone does now. Along the way, we also want to kill off all the really shit software that we've had to use in the past in our business. And one of them, the tools we particularly dislike, is Microsoft Sharepoint. It's always good to go after a big, hairy product, especially when you're starting a new business. Lots of great businesses like Salesforce have done it in the past with Oracle and Siebel, and we're doing it with Salesforce. And with Sharepoint, rather. Now, Sharepoint, it has been a great tool, but it was designed for this traditional paradigm of sitting on the server. Whereas what we do now, it's about breaking free of that and working with anyone, wherever you are. And just to tell you how much we can have some fun with this, Sharepoint had their development conference in Anaheim about 3 weeks ago. And we decided, wouldn't it be fun to tell everyone about how you can use Huddle instead of Sharepoint? So we hired a 120-person American football marching band, complete with cheerleaders and pom-poms, and we marched them straight into the conference. So you can have a lot of fun going up against the big guys. And the guys at the conference loved it. We loved it. It's good fun. Work does not have to be dull. But in the most dull and boring of places, we're actually getting a lot of usage, and one of them is government. It turns out that government is a very collaborative place to work, and that the tools you have in government are even worse than the tools you have in a traditional business. So we're getting huge usage within the UK government, the US government, Belgium, Italy, I think actually over here as well, which is very exciting. So you get help for new startups from the most unlikely of places. And if you're starting a business now, what I would say is don't be afraid to go and work with organizations like governments who traditionally have been very old and slow to buy software, but actually now are really pushing new software. Cloud in the US, cloud in the UK is, if you're buying new software in the UK or US government now, it has to be cloud first. But what does this mean? Well, what is the upshot of all of this? Well, if we're trying to break the enterprise software, the first thing we have to do is make this software really, really lovely to use. And that's what Huddle is, we hope, a lovely tool to use. It's as nice to use as any of your social tools. And we're so confident that it's good to use is that if you deploy Huddle in your business and people don't like it, they don't use it, then we'll give you your money back. Now that's pretty simple in the social world. You expect that. You go and buy a a product, you don't like it, it doesn't work, you take it back. That's normal. But in enterprise software, that's revolutionary. Being able to say, hey, this doesn't work, I don't want to use it, that's huge. And so we really believe in that bottom-up viral adoption. I set up a huddle, I invite in 5 people into that huddle. Those 5 people invite in another 5. It grows from the word of mouth. And why is that so important when you're building enterprise software in today's world? Well, it's because the way in which we sell now is completely different to the way we used to sell. Sales nowadays is not me picking up the phone and calling a guy in a company, telling him about my big expensive enterprise bit of software. Sales nowadays is me using that software with 5 people in my business. And they thinking, this is great, this really works. I'm going to invite in 5 other people. I'm going to grow it and grow it. And lots of products out there like Yammer, Jive, us, are all doing the same thing. It's sales 2.0. It's sales. Our customers are our best salespeople, okay? Our biggest customers are the people who are using Huddle. They invite in their customers. Those customers use Huddle, and then they call us. We've never talked to them. So if that's the new way you sell, then what that relies on is having a fantastic product, even in the enterprise software space, where traditionally user experience is the last thing on your mind. But what happens when you get 1,000 people in your business and the CIO looks at it and says, what is this stuff we're using? Why is everyone using this product? I didn't buy this, but I've got thousands of people using it. Traditionally, we were scared. We thought the IT director would say, I'm going to get rid of it. But that's not true anymore. It turns out that our best friends are CIOs, CTOs, and the guys that run IT. And why are they our best friends? Well, they're our best friends because this stuff really works. It's cheaper. It's better. It's easier to manage. It's faster to roll out. You're not locked into 5-year contracts with a big legacy player like Oracle, paying thousands of pounds or dollars per person. It's a lot cheaper. You know, running cloud software is, run Huddle, okay, just as an example, it costs about $20 per person per month, total, for everything. The training, the support, the setup, the use of Huddle, everything. If you were to do the same thing in Sharepoint, that's more like $140 per person per month. So by the time you've bought the software, bought the servers, set it up, got a SharePoint consultant in, set up an IT help desk, bought the external licenses, trained everyone, customized it, bought new servers 3 years later, upgraded to 2010, 3 years after that. So that's 1/7 of the price. So IT love it. So as a result, we're growing pretty fast. We're in a lucky space. We're tripling every year. I've given you some of the stats already. We're 80 people in London. We've got a team in San Francisco. We're opening an office in Boston in January or February. And we're loving life. It's very, very exciting. It's very exciting to be growing a business, taking the best of the social world and bringing it into the enterprise and totally disrupting a new market. Because what's so exciting about what we're doing at Huddle is we're basically creating a giant collaboration network that sits in the middle of every single business in the world and enables those businesses to work together. Think of it like an intercompany LinkedIn. And when you're in that network, in a Huddle, you're sharing documents, you're managing projects, and you can work with whoever you want, whenever and wherever. And we're taking the paradigm of social networking, person-to-person networking, and bringing it in the enterprise where it's not really people to people, it's more business to business. And that's very, very exciting because we're using the internet for what it's really good at. We're not just saying, oh, we're going to take some software and put it in the cloud. That's nothing. That's just like saying it's just another server that I don't run. We're using the internet for what it's really good at, which is networking. And you get to do some really cool stuff along the way and really geek out about this stuff, right? This is a picture that was sent to me last night on our Facebook group by my CTO, who's super excited about the fact that he's now running Huddle on his radio in his car. So he's got an Android interface on his radio in his car, and this is Huddle running on it. That's super geeky, but who would have ever thought that you could access all of your work content, your people you're working with, all of the information you need, the latest board minutes, the latest project plan, when you're sitting waiting for your wife to get back from the shopping. So that's a huge thing, and that's an example of how you're transforming the world of work. And it makes it very exciting. So, to finish off, what I would say is, when we're building businesses, when you're thinking about businesses you want to build, when you're thinking about how you want to build your next bit of software, or whether you're in your own bit of software right now, go big, don't go home. Think of the biggest problem that you can think of and try and change the world with that problem. And do it using the internet for what it's really good at, what can really change the way in which we work together. And hopefully that's what we're doing with Huddle, changing the way people work. Thank you. Oh, is it?
Questions for Alastair? Okay, so I can help you out.
Hi.
Hi.
Take us back when you started. How difficult it was to, make all these big companies and governments trust you. So what was the first steps when you started, when you made the difference?
It's a really good question. Building enterprise software is very hard and slow, often compared to consumer software, because, as you say, it's very hard to get companies to trust you. It's very hard to get the government to trust you. So you have to do two things. One is you have to design a product that is ready for a big business. And you have to understand what a big business wants. And what they want is they want security. They want uptime. They want people on the end of the phone they can talk to. That's actually the biggest thing. Someone in a business they can call up if they've got a problem. They can hit if the server is down. So you have to have a product that's enterprise ready. And the second thing is it's all about those reference customers. And it's like a snowball. Once you get one big customer, you can then add on another big customer and another and another. And that's the hardest one, is getting those first one or two. But you can get them. There are always people who are looking to make a change or try something radical. So it's those two things.
One more question.
One question here also.
Yeah, we have one in the back.
No, here. In the middle.
It's pretty bright, you have to say. You should stand up.
From the security point of view, how do you handle this? That all the data is in the cloud, and I don't know, we had Pablo before who showed us that everything's so easy to get. How do you handle? Do you have complaints from the customer? Never happened anything? Thanks.
So you're absolutely right. Data security is one of the biggest issues. But if you think about it, think about traditional business. When you send something on email to someone, you have no idea where that's gone, that content. That person could send it on to anyone. They could leave their laptop in a bar and it's picked up. The number of information that's sitting around on USB sticks being walked out of businesses that is really important information is huge. So it's a complete myth that secure enterprises are secure because everything's on your server. It's insane how insecure businesses are. Actually putting them in the cloud in a secure infrastructure where everything is encrypted, where you're encrypting the data between you and the server, where you can see everything that's going on in Huddle. If someone accesses my file in Huddle, I know exactly who's accessed it, when they accessed it, what they downloaded. I can even control which IP address they're coming from. So you have to put in lots of control, but what that actually means is you can build something that is more secure. The cloud can actually be more secure than traditional ways of working, where there's so much information fragmented around all these different places. And frankly, the reason we use USB sticks and email is because we're so pissed off that we can't share information easily. So not only does the cloud change the way you work and make it easier, but actually it can help you with security as well.
My name is Alex Balan from Bitdefender.
Hi, Alex.
So the question was somewhat related to what he said. Have you run into any problems when trying to strike a deal with somebody in terms of security and privacy? Did anybody express concerns about their data being managed by somebody else other than them?
So the answer is yes. It's always the question, but I think attitudes are changing quickly. 3 years ago when we started, it was the biggest #1 question. Was where is my data, are you secure enough to run it? But now people are so used to running Salesforce for their sales data, or in personal lives, storing stuff in Dropbox or in the iCloud. People are used to it. And so I think those questions are really being kind of broken away now. People are very comfortable storing stuff in the cloud as long as you can prove that you are ready for it and you're a good enough hosting customer for them.
And one final question, have you considered for an enterprise solution either a virtual server or something like that that can be deployed on premise?
Really good question. So the biggest thing about Huddle is that it is this network that everyone can access. All companies can work together. As soon as you put it on behind the firewall on a virtual server on premise, you break that. The network doesn't work. So the whole point of Huddle dies, and you become like another version of SharePoint. Why would we do that? So the answer is we can't. Our whole business is predicated on being on the internet as a network. However, there are some places where there are very big internets in their own right that need to be very secure. And one of those examples is government. In government, there is a lot of people working together on a network, but it is on a piece of fiber that is very secure that no one else can access. So for the UK government, and now we'll do it for the US government as well, we have built a version that sits on their servers, highly secure, behind a firewall, on dark fiber that is only accessible by people with a certain security level. But that's like a mini internet, right? It's 500,000 people in the UK. It's a big old group of people. So the answer is yes, but only in very, very specific cases, and it will only be for government. Otherwise, it has to be on the public web.
One question.
Yes, how come Huddle doesn't offer a free plan for small businesses like Google Apps does?
Really good question. Simple.
I just want to ask everybody who's asking questions to first introduce themselves, so we can.
Blog Alexandru, the next web Romania.
Great, we can actually personalize the communication this way.
Yes. So the simple answer is we tried that and we almost broke our business. So about a year ago or 18 months ago, our model was freemium. You could invite in as many people as you wanted into Huddle, and we had low-cost plans for small businesses, and then you would eventually pay. It was a traditional freemium model, which I've seen a lot of guys here presenting. It turns out that building enterprise software on a freemium model is very, very hard. In fact, no one has done it well yet. No one has built a billion-dollar business, which we're trying to build at Huddle, with a freemium model. Because people won't buy it. The IT directors will think it's too cheap. They won't buy it. They don't understand it. They're much more comfortable having a model where they buy it on a free trial. They do have a free trial, but then they buy it on a traditional model of per seat, whatever, $20 per person per month. Now, when you have a model like that, what that means is you are very much aiming your product at the enterprise. So we moved away from the small business side. I would love to build a product for small business. Maybe the next one I'll do is for small businesses. But there are some fantastic products in small business, like Google, like Dropbox, like Box. And those products are simpler, they're cheaper, they're freemium. And as a small business, that's what you care about, is cost, right? You don't care as much about security and functionality and help desk support and all of that stuff. You care about cost and ease of use. So we decided to focus on the enterprise, where we think there's a bigger market, where people are very badly served right now. And frankly, for us, it makes more sense for the product, and we think we can build a much bigger business. It's very hard to build a billion-dollar business in the small business sector. It's very hard. And it's almost impossible with a freemium model. So we've done a lot of experimenting around this, and this is how we ended up. And that since we made the change, just to give you an example of how this works, okay? So last year, we spent 3 times more on marketing than we did this year. But we're going to sell, in dollar terms, 3 times more this year than we did last year, with a marketing budget that is 1/3. That's because we don't have to acquire millions of users and then convert them in this freemium model. That's the difference. So when you're building a business, you have to really think about these things, and it can make a huge difference to how successful your business is. I hope that sort of answers your question and throws in some other metrics as well.
Bogdan, can I squeeze in one more question, please?
Yes, please.
So last question, Alastair, in the back. I was wondering whether you could expand a bit on actually selling Huddle, especially in the beginning and once the product was a bit mature, into the enterprise market. I mean, I believe there's a big difference between adopting products such as Huddle as an SMB compared to adopting Huddle as an enterprise customer. And I know there's a lot of problems with selling a new product or a product that's supposed to change a mindset in the enterprise market. And was wondering what your difficulties were and if you could expand a bit on this.
So if I'm not wrong, this is Mihai asking, right?
Sorry?
No, I have another question, but
okay.
He answers.
Okay.
The name of the guy
who just asked that question? I think
it's me in the back of Svan.
So, to answer your question is, yes, enterprises are very hard. If you decide you've got a software product and you have to go and talk to the CTO, that's the only person that will buy your product. It'll take you years to get there, and you will break your business. So the answer is viral growth. Treat every team, every department, every group of people in your business like a small business. So you sell to them like lots of small businesses. And you get lots of people using your product in the organization. And then, 6 months later, then you go and talk to the CTO, and you say, we've got 1,000 people in your business using Huddle. They all love it. They're all paying for it. Let's talk about a rollout now to your whole organization. And that's the way you do it. And we've been very, very successful at that viral growth and then talking to CTO. That's how you do enterprise sales now. The old model of waiting for 6 months and going out for coffee and drinks and golf with the IT director is dead. No one does that anymore. It doesn't work.
My name is Mihai. I think you have a great product.
Thank
But
you.
I want to ask you how much time you developed it before you considered it mature enough to sell to big companies or to governments. How much time passed before you sold the solution to the first customer?
So we give you the timeline. We started, the idea we had was in February. We started developing the product in June, and we launched it in beta in November. And then we had our first customer in January, 2 months after the kind of private beta with some selected customers who were free using the product. So what's that? 9 months from end to end, and 4 or 5 months of development. So that's quite a long time, but it's not a huge amount of time. I think I'm a massive advocate of getting your software out there and getting it being used. Even if you'll find that if it's new and exciting, and if it's a good user experience, customers, even big customers like big companies, will forgive you for an awful lot because their problems are so big and you're solving some of their problems. So I would definitely urge you to get stuff out quickly, even into the enterprise market, just like you would be if you were launching into consumer. You can then fix your availability and your security and your uptime and your support as you get more customers. But definitely get it out there sooner rather than later.
I have one more question. Andrei is my name. How big is your data center, or do you have more data centers? I'm just curious.
We have several data centers. We don't actually run our own. We actually work with Rackspace. Because if you want to spend $10 million very effectively and very quickly, then the best way to do that is to build your own or use your own data center. We work with partners like Rackspace, but we have multiple data centers. And why is that important? Well, it's very important because you get better latency for customers in their geography, but it's also very important because we have full redundancy. So it's very expensive, this, and you would never do it for a consumer product or for a small business product, but you have to do it at the enterprise. Everything in one data center is backed up in real time to the other data center. So we have a whole data center sitting there with huddle data on it that no one is using. Incredibly expensive. But what it means is that if this data center goes down, this one is available immediately. And that's the stuff that enterprises care about. That's the stuff they will pay for. But it's very expensive, and you would never do it if you were a consumer business. So that's an example of being ready for the enterprise.
Hi, I'm Alex.
Hi, Alex.
Just one question. Sharepoint, you can customize it, and lots of big companies do that. Do you get requests from big companies that want to customize Huddle, and how do you react to that? Or how do you prioritize what you're going to develop next?
So it's always so I'll answer the second question first. Prioritization is, as anyone here will know with a product, is the hardest thing you will do, because there are always more features you want to add or more improvements you want to make than engineering resource you have, even if you have a huge team. Google, Facebook, they're all the same. So you have to prioritize based on what your market is and what your strategy is. And for us, our priority is actually not adding features, it's making features simpler, almost taking away features. So doing the opposite of an enterprise tool where you get what's called bloatware, where you add more and more features, it becomes more and more customizable. Actually, 95% of what you want to do in SharePoint after you've spent 3 months customizing it, you can do in Huddle out of the box. So we took the things that people actually use day in, day out, and put them into Huddle so you don't have to customize it. So yes, you can adapt it and you can integrate it back into your systems, but integration, full adaptation and customization, we do for you.
Thank you.
There's one more question, I think.
One more question in the back, please. I love the fact that people are asking so many questions.
It's
Hi.
Hey.
Hi. So regarding the last question, how do you deal with the pressure from these enterprise clients? Do they put any pressure on you to implement certain features that they feel they need?
They do, absolutely. We often have conversations with customers where they say, we will buy it next year if you have this, or we will renew and add on 1,000 seats if you do X, Y, or Z. And it might be that that feature that they want, no one else wants. So that's really hard. So the way you get around that, and this is, again, an important part of building a cloud product for enterprise, is you use your API layer. So everything in Huddle is built on our API. Our web app, all our phone apps, our desktop sync, our Office plugins, all of them are built on our API layer. Now, first of all, that means we can add in lots of new functionality and new channels, new apps very easily. But the second thing is it means that you can give that API layer to a customer and say, if there is something that Huddle doesn't do, you can use our APIs to adapt or integrate yourself. So a classic example would be, we've got lots of content in Huddle, and we want to make sure that that content is also available and stored in our old records management or document management system on our server, because we have to keep it for 15 years. No one uses that. Everyone uses Huddle, but we need the data to be in there. Can you build us an integration? The answer is use our APIs. And we have a professional services company who can help to do that. So that's how you get around those questions. And that means you can focus the product on being super easy to use and exactly what your customers want. And then the stuff around the edge, you can get customers to integrate and adapt themselves using the API layer.
Thank you.
And the last super quick question. It was somebody in the back.
Thank you guys
Raise
for all
your
these,
hand.
thank you
Yes.
for all these questions, by the way, because it's great to have such a, traditionally enterprise software is such a boring subject that it's great
It's
to have
not.
lots of questions. Was it one more question?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Tudor. I have a question. Can you spend a little time talking about how you structure your product team and about the role of product managers and XD, and maybe about the process of defining your MVP, since I noticed that you are very interested in keeping things out of your product.
Yes.
Thanks.
So we can schedule a talk for next year on
Yeah,
that
yeah, we'll do
subject,
that.
but we can also, you can give a quick answer now.
The quick answer is you have to have a very clearly defined vision. And from that, everything in your business flows. Our vision is to change the way people work together and to make enterprise software for sharing content super easy. So that means that everything we do is around sharing content. That means that our CTO is at the top of the tree, and he has a team of product guys, he has a team of developers, and he has a team of infrastructure guys. So 3 teams, and they know exactly what they have to do because we're all trying to change the way people work together in Huddle. And they work it's a very agile, we release every 2 weeks. We had 4 seconds of downtime last month, even for 2 releases. And the product guys are a whole team, and they work very closely with each of the development teams. So we have multiple teams, and each team has a product person, it has a QA, it has a front end, and a bunch of back end guys all working together. And the nice thing about that model is you can grow that very quickly because you can add on more teams as you need more people. And then they all report into our CTO, who is the guy that has the real final say on any of these decisions.